My name is Helen Walsh. I'm one of the Employflex flexible work specialists with Karen and the team. Great to see a huge number again and lots of the same faces from the last few weeks and the last few webinars we've held. Today is the fifth of our free back to work webinars. We would normally be hosting these across Ireland right now. Yeah, and May was normally a good busy month, May, June, busy month for us across across Munster, and then we would up the country as well. So it's nice to bring these online. I'm just going to wait until my co-host Lorraine McGuinness. Lorraine, do you want to turn on your video there? There we go. Hi, Lorraine. And
sorry. Hi.
No bother. I was just doing an intro. No worries. I was just doing a quick intro, Lorraine. So yeah, look, I hope it's crazy that we're into June already. I hope you guys all got to enjoy a bit of the beautiful sunshine. I think we all deserved that after all of the craziness since kind of the restrictions and since that kind of March 12th shutdown. What else? So yeah, a quick bit about ourselves, Employflex and Employ Mum. We're around since 2016. Karen O'Reilly launched Employ Mum back then when she returned home from France, with the aim of helping and empowering professional women to get back into the workforce. In the last year, we added a new arm, Employflex, to our brand. It made sense at the time because over 50% of our placements were either non-parents or male. So Employ Mum, while it served us really well and it still exists, it was a little bit limiting in terms of the niche. So Employflex, it was a great start. We had Simon Coveney launched our new brand last September 2019 in Cork. Yeah, so we had a good 6 months with that launch, and then obviously the pandemic hit. January and February was a really good start for our brand, and yeah, obviously things quietened down a little bit, more so paused rather than stopped completely. And I suppose for that, and many of you job seekers here today, I will say that while March and April were quiet and there was a bit of lull in the recruitment arm of our business, May was positive and there was quite a pickup, and I think we can see as the phases start as June 8th now with phase 2 of the kind of reopening of Ireland, and I think some of our clients will start getting confident again and realize that they do need some new people on board. So on top of that, I mean, we run all these back to work workshops. We're bringing a lot online now. Karen does a lot of A to Z of Zoom, and she's working with a lot of the chambers and a lot of the other kind of semi-state bodies across Ireland. We do a lot of returnships still with partner companies. Returnships, essentially an internship, but for a professional who has taken that career break for 2 to 3 years and ready to get back into work. Karen is a keynote speaker across Ireland and a lobbyist really for flexible work and that revolution that's been given quite the big boost in the last couple of months across the world. And yeah, we do a lot of remote work training programs right now. Many of our clients are, we're tailoring some training programs for them, not just for their employees, but for them themselves as managers, how to lead their teams remotely. It's quite a new challenge for all. Okay, so just a bit of housekeeping. This session will be recorded and will be available on YouTube, so I just wanted to give you a heads up on that. If you hover over your screen, you'll see a Q&A section at the bottom there. So please feel free to pop in a question there throughout. If you are nervous about a certain question, of course, there's an option to send anonymously. So we will be respectful of that request. So we'll wait until the very end so that Lorraine can run through her presentation. And today the topic is CVs and how to design a killer CV. And one thing I've learned more than ever now in the last few months is competition is high right now. Many have unfortunately been laid off or lost their roles for now. I had a role just 2 weeks ago. It was not a remote role and kind of in a rural part of Ireland. And in pre-COVID times, I would have expected maybe 40, 50 applicants for that role. And I received 168 applicants in the space of 48 hours. So competition is high. And that's why I'm glad that there's a great number of attendees today, because your CV is what will get you in that door. And it's about having even myself a few weeks ago having to skim that 168 CVs to bring it down to that long list of people to call. It's so important that even those 2 pages, because that's all that the decision maker, the reader of your CV, will learn about you there and then. So on to our fantastic speaker today, Lorraine McGuinness. Lorraine, we actually have been working with Lorraine for a few years. We've never met face to face, and I think that's testament to how well we've been in this remote workspace for quite a while. Lorraine, I mean, what we hear from Lorraine or via our candidates is like the amazing feedback about Lorraine's work. We often hear from a candidate and their CV might be a little bit poor, and they might have lost their mojo, and we will often send them Lorraine's direction first before applying for that dream role, and the transformation before and after is incredible, both in their CV but then also that confidence piece they've received, because the truth is there, but she just brought that good CV and that good skill set they had to the fore. Lorraine has a master's in industrial relations and HR, a lot of background in HR with also some positions in marketing. She's a really strong writer and editor, and she does a lot of that on freelance basis. She has set up her company in Sligo town, a company called CV Tips and Tricks. She set it up after realizing that the CVs being sent to recruitment agencies or through online job search platforms, they lacked the action-oriented language needed to pass some of the ATS software, which is these tracking system software, which Lorraine will allude to more shortly in her presentation. Since then, she's written for clients across the world, Ireland, her base, UK, US, Europe, and the Middle East, and all different levels from directors, executives, down to graduates and students. She tailors every CV, clearly showcasing their abilities. She really gets to know them and really ultimately guides them through that interview then. So on that note, I think I've done my little housekeeping piece. I will turn my own face off, and Lorraine, you can take over.
Thank you very much, Helen. I don't know now whether I have much to talk about myself.
Sorry, yes, I stole that part.
I know, you're grand. So what I'm going to do is I will just share my screen so you can see my presentation. Yes, so first I want to extend my thanks to Helen and Karen and everyone at Employflex for inviting me this week on this webinar series, which are very popular and very useful going forward to job seekers, especially during this time. And hello to everybody watching, and for taking the time out to listen to me. Hopefully the advice you receive is, you can follow it, but also is very helpful to you going forward writing your CVs as you tackle that challenge. So yes, as suggested here, I'm going to go through how to design a killer CV, or one that maybe would help you to stand out from all those applicants. With the three C's of CV writing, my apologies. So yes, a little bit about CV tips and tricks. Now, Helen did, surmise very well as to what my background is. I have a background in HR. I've done some marketing positions, and I dabbled in web design and web development as well. So my approach to writing would be very much creative. And I also believe in bringing in positivity to the writing and the document, and which will help to bring out the confidence in the people that I do see on a daily basis with regards to their skill set, or having difficulty to discuss that on a page. So yeah, I set it up in 2016 in Sligo town, and since then it actually has been growing in popularity. That is, by connecting with recruitment agencies, with Collins McNicholas, for example, and Employ Mum, who have been very kind with sending me some clients, and I've been very happy working with them, actually. It's always nice to talk to people over the phone and having a bit of banter with them as well. And seeing the actual skill set that they do have, but is finding it difficult to put on paper. So some of the core services that I do provide would be based on professional CVs, which would have a lot of industry buzzwords, keywords, phrases related to the job that you're going for, but also to the seniority of the position you are in. As Helen mentioned, I have worked with people who are on director level, to those who are just leaving school or in college at the moment trying to look for work placement. So I have a bit, I'm able to tailor each CV with the language to suit the person as well as the direction that they want to go in. So yes, they're all tailored to pass these ATS systems, which would really be about, what they do is they scan your CV, and usually they're used by maybe larger companies who have a lot of applicants for particular jobs, and it scans your CV and weighs it against criteria set by the employer against that job description. So this is where it's important to have these keywords and even just words in your CV, as it will be picked up by these systems. I also provide LinkedIn profile optimization, which is effectively an online CV, but the language is tailored so that it's more personable in its approach, because it is a social media platform at the end of the day as well. But it helps to connect the CV and the LinkedIn together. And then, the odd job application, and I do some editing, proofreading, and things like that as well. So that's brief about myself. Let's get into the presentation at hand. And I think I've taken liberty with the title of this, the 3 C's of CV writing, as they all start with CV. So the first one would be the CV layout. So this is really the placement of the information on the page, and what you would, placement of things on the page, and what you want employers to see with regards to this section to include. The CV design then is how you can add some creativity to the CV through formatting or with little graphical elements. And then finally, the CV content. So this is really the use of the language and the keywords and the action verbs together to then draft a really standout CV. So first off, CV layout. So these here are 5 of the main sections that you would normally see on a CV, whether it's remote-based work, full-time work, part-time work. These are the 5 key sections that you can include in your CV. That would be your personal details, your career summary or personal profile, or profile summary, your skills, your competencies, work experience, and your education or training. But that doesn't mean that you can't include additional sections as well. So I'll go through these now in a minute. So for me as a writer, and this is how I feel that this will benefit you as well when you're writing, is if you had to have your personal details, summary, and skills at the top always on your CV when you're laying it out. So your details include your name and then any contact information. So that would be phone number, email, LinkedIn as well if you have one. You can also, sometimes I might include languages up there. I might also include, if people want a driver's license, to mention that up there. So this is really information about you that's at the very top of the page. Doesn't mean you have to put them in, but it can be something to put in as long as they can get contact with you. Your profile then is, it's like a mini cover letter, as I say to people. It should be 4 or 5 lines on the page, no more than that. And it should then help to focus the content of the CV by positioning you as a professional in relation to the direction you want to go, what you can bring to organizations. You might highlight some skills in there that relate to the job in that profile. And it allows employers then to see what you are about as a professional as they read through the CV itself. Then you have your skills and competencies, which would then be where your keywords come into play. Now, this can be a mixture of professional, which would be related to the job, personal, which would be more the soft skills like, team working and leadership capabilities. And then your technical skills, which would then be any software that you might have used throughout your work history. This can be particularly important as well for, again, remote working, like many of us are, is because you want to show that you can work from home and are competent in certain software that they might use. And it would then allow the employer to see that you don't need additional training perhaps in that as well. So it's just, there's all these other inferred things that would be said if you put certain keywords in there. The next two then would be your work experience and your training. Now, these would depend, in relation to how these are laid out on the CV, it would depend on whether you're a graduate or a student or a long-term in employment, because you can have your education after your skills, or you can have your experience after your skills. It depends on what you want to show first on the page. And with regards to your work experience, focus is given to the most recent. That would be in chronological order, you know, so even if you worked there a year or so, now it doesn't mean you have to fill the half the page with that, but it means that the further back you go in your experiences, the less weight you will need, especially if you have already done similar work more recent. So if you have done a job more recent than 10 years ago, we'll say, then you can bring the duties and things like that similar from that job before into the current role. That's more recent because it's an initial scan. And then with your education here, you would include your third level post-leaving certificates if you have any. If you do have any certifications that require renewal, then include the renewed version. So you wouldn't need to put in 2010 if you did it 2010 and then in 2015, just include 2015. And then if you and then you remove any outdated qualifications then, or maybe more than 20 years. So things like, I don't know if you've done Microsoft Word processing 1997, for example, you don't need to put that in because that's been replaced with an updated version. So it's really a matter of getting rid of maybe outdated information that won't add value to you and putting in the most recent, most updated versions. So then with your sections then, it's as I was saying, you can put in additional sections that, you know, will help lay out the CV, and that includes voluntary experience, references. Now I say that's an additional section because it depends on how much space you have and maybe the level of seniority you have. It's implied that you will have references available, but you know, you can put that section in. Academic projects would go along with your education. Again, if you're a recent graduate, you might want to put them in, you know, education, academic projects. It helps to bring more skills, transferable abilities to the front, to the fore, rather than focusing on only professional experiences. Relevant experience or key projects can also be placed above professional experience. Now, the relevant experience would be if you did a job that you're now going back into a long time ago, you can mention that at the beginning above the chronological experience to highlight that you've already done this role in the past. Hobbies and interests and key achievements. So those you know, go hand in hand. Then, in relation to your CV design, this is your opportunity to add some creativity to the design of your template or to the CV itself, and you know, draw attention to it, especially if people are scanning it in person, because you know, you can catch the eye of the reader. So this is going to focus more on the formatting elements that you can add into your design, and that would be, you know, you can add paragraphs and bullet points. So this is a mixture throughout your CV, in particular with regards to your work experience. If you have bullet points, it allows you to draw the reader's eye to the bullet points, because you can put in key achievements, you can put in, you know, key things that you want to highlight, because you know, you're instantly drawn. If you see it on the page, you're instantly drawn to that. And the paragraph then can be used to describe an overall an overview of the job, or you know, day-to-day activities or something like that. So the bullet points are used to kind of highlight things that aren't normal with your experience, we'll say. And it breaks the content as well. It allows you to, you know, quickly scan through information. Tables and columns are very useful, especially if maybe you can't refine education and it's all relevant to where you want to go. And you can have columns and tables, so it'll be on, you know, side by side on the page, and it'll allow you to keep that integral information, but without losing the space that you need. As I said, there is best used for skills or education sections, because you know, the skills can be put into bullet points in a table, and it'll give you more leeway there with regards to how much you can put in. And then the margins and spacing. Now, by default, a Word document is 2.5 on the page. So if you're unsure on how to adjust the margins, you know, maybe, I don't know, you can, there's a little, you know, section on that in the Word, but, you know, the margins can be shortened, so then you can have more information to write about on the page. And make sure that if you are spacing the content between the headings and the sections of your CV, that it is consistent, it is the same, because there's nothing worse than when you're designing it, you know, you say attention to detail in your cover letter, for example, or in the profile, and, you know, those little things are missed. So it's just something like that as well. So this is an example of what I have here. Just that top image there is a quick, you know, a description of a job, and as you can see there, it's kind of surmising quickly, you know, what you've done day to day, and then the bullet point there is about an action-orientated result there, an action-orientated description. And then the education there, as you can see, is in a table format, and it allows you then to have, now it doesn't mean that they're equal weight or anything like that, that's not really what's inferred there. It's more, these are my third level qualifications, and then underneath you might have in-house training, or you might have certs, and you might have other qualifications that you can list, and makes it easier on to share the space. And as you can see, only 2 lines have been used rather than 4 or 5. So following on from that, then you can add a bit of creativity. So this is where the font styles and size come in. When you are writing your CV, it's important to maybe keep it to 10.5 at the minimum throughout for the main content, main body of the CV, because you want readers not to squint when they're reading it. So 10.5 is the min, and I would say 12 at the max, especially if you're somebody who might not have a lot of experience, or, you know, is struggling to make space. I would suggest as well, just on the design on this, I wouldn't make a CV 2 pages if you don't have the information to make it 2 pages, you know. That could be, you know, that's just that again, you know, you can have it where, especially if you're somebody who is in a job for a long period of time, you can have every single relevant section on 1 page, as long as you're, you know, there's nothing worse than having it very spaced out and it looks higgledy-piggledy then. It's all about consistency and visual impact, I guess. So those are some fonts there that you can see that I would tend to use, or I mix and match the odd time. But if you're, let's say, depending on the industry as well, you might want to put more rounded fonts in there. So Corbel is a nice rounded font, Calibri. If you're more conservative, you might decide to choose Cambria, because it's very similar to Times New Roman, and I would suggest, if anyone's using Times New Roman, to not use Times New Roman anymore. It's an outdated font, and you can experiment a little bit with it. In relation to the sections now, this is where the fonts again can come into play, where you can use a different type of font for the sections. So then again, you're drawn to a particular area on your CV. So I would tend to have 1 font for the headings and 1 font for the content. You can also put in some color in there as well if you want to keep it all the same font, but you can add a bit of color in there as well. So again, I just have a few, there's just again a few examples. The first 2 headings are actually the same font, but they are different colors. So it's really just about how you want to, it's also about what you would like as well. If it doesn't appeal to you, then I would suggest finding something that does appeal to you. As you can see here, I have there little images at the bottom. That is actually from a more technical based CV, we'll say. And as I, you know, from my experience, technical CVs tend to be a bit heavy when you're reading them. So by adding in a bit of images like that there to highlight the certifications, we'll say, it actually softens the content a little bit. And again, it's just a visual impact, and the smaller the change, the bigger the impact it is. So if you are going to bring in some creativity and a bit of formatting and everything else, remember to keep the design consistent, and that would include the tabs and tabulations. So some people have tabulations and things. Again, that falls in with the attention to detail thing. You know, tabs have to be all the same. And if you're a graphic designer or something like that, you know, a graphical CV might be more for you. But this is more if you want to just add a little bit of flair into it. You can add those wee images and little icons and things like that to help draw that attention. The content. Now, the content here is about making it more action-based. So what I mean by that is anything you do always has a reason or a result to it. And that could be anything, you know, that could be from leading a team or anything like that. But you have to be careful not to come across as a doer rather than an achiever, as I say there. So instead of stating what you've done, it's more you need to show employers or tell a story almost of what you've done in each position. And I find if you feel that if you tell that story, as though if you think of an interview almost when you're writing your experiences, it will help you to tell that story to somebody. So you can do that by adding in that punchy action-oriented language, which comes with experience, I will say that, but showcase your achievements rather than your duties. Now, this could be anything from introducing new processes, how you introduce new processes, and did that then involve with engaging with different people in the organization? Did you help to bring in some new design model for a business? Did you lead a team? And if you did, how big was the team? And then if you were in charge of a team, did you motivate that team? And then the result of that maybe was to, you know, improve their performance or to help with getting a project over the line or something like that. So everything you're doing has a positive result to it. And that's what that second bullet point is. It doesn't have to be always facts and figures. It's really what you feel added significant value to you, and you came out of it learning something new or feeling that that is where you want to go now. And that is almost, you know, true for anybody I've had with CVs, where they would come out and say that is what started me on this career, was that experience, because it gave me project management experience or something like that. So that is what that is about. And then you use the action verbs related to the industry. So with this, it's easy to choose one or two verbs and then have them repeated throughout the CV. What I suggest is mix up the verbs, and I would try and only have a verb listed twice at most throughout a CV. And the reason being is that one verb, like for example, I have here actually an example. It's like if you're, let's say, in an admin situation or any situation, compile reports suggests to me, and then it depends on what else you write, but it suggests to me that you're taking information from maybe an Excel spreadsheet or something, and you're writing it down to create the report. So you're compiling that report from information. But generate report would suggest maybe using a software to help you with that. And then that again is now showing the employer where you learned that skill and how you put it into practice and what the result of that was. So they're the same thing, but a change of a verb changes the context as well of a sentence. And that is true when you're talking about maybe a similar job, like a sales assistant job in one place and another place. You know, you can change it and chop and change, and it'll be the same thing, but it'll sound different. So then when you use the job description, what I mean by that is you might look at the jobs, it's very helpful. You use the job description to focus the CV. And that could be, if it says project in the job description, you say project on the, you know, in the CV. And the same thing with skills. You can always see what kind of skills they might be looking for from the job description, and you can put them into your CV. So just to finish with this particular slide, is your CV is a marketing tool. So you don't need to include everything. You don't need to include every single thing that you've ever done, especially if you're at a certain level in your career at the moment. So if you are, again, this is where the 10 years thing I mentioned there in the layout is, if you're, you can include your experiences that's more historic in a career note, or as I put it, as additional experience. Because it's still mentioned on the CV, you want to mention it, but you don't feel you need to elaborate on it, because the experiences you have now, you've built on that, and you've used the experiences to help you through going forward. So just remember that, it is a marketing tool. It should be 2 pages at most, 3 pages at a push, depending on the industry again and the seniority of the person. So I find that maybe engineers or project managers or even academics as well, they might decide to add in the projects and section and elaborate further. You can also include publications that maybe if you're an academic, publications and conferences and things. So it all depends on who you are and where you plan to go. And finally, grammar and tenses. So this is very important, especially if maybe you're getting your templates from monster.ie or something like that, or somewhere online, because Monster is a US company. So the language that they use on their CV templates would be US English. So just be mindful that when you are when you are writing your CV, to change the English to Ireland or UK, because it can affect the spelling. And then the tenses of the verbs are very important. So when you're talking about past tense, it's past tense, and when you're talking about present tense, it's present tense of the verbs. So I have a quick do's and don'ts checklist here, which basically is just summarizing everything that I've just said. Especially if you find it difficult to keep up with me. So the do's checklist, so you choose the CV template that suits you in the industry. Now, the template can be changed. So, there is no one right template for any job. There is no one right template for any industry or person. The template is really to help you, build that CV. And remember that it is about you. So it should reflect some of your personalities as well. So you have information there, include information that reflects your professional ability. That is, again, just the action-oriented language, the results, the achievements, the contributions, everything like that. Buzzwords, keywords, everything. Now, again, you don't need to fill the page with a whole bunch of buzzwords and keywords. It's just enough to help you rank. I can't say, how many times or, anything like that. But it means that, if you feel you are saying a particular word too much, maybe change that word, because then you won't feel like it's being monotonous for yourself when you're writing it. As I said, you can experiment with the design. And what I sometimes say to people is, maybe if you have different things going on in your CV, you can change the placement of this of something. So you might have the personal details, profile and skills, and then you might have had your relevant experience there, and then following on work experience. So what you then might decide is, you might decide to change that to key accomplishments or achievements, and then follow on with your experiences. And by saving those two CVs, they're different in their own way. So test them out and see what you get, responses from. It's all about testing. Sometimes, and remember, the CV is actually all about getting the interview, not the job. So if you're not getting responses from the interview for an interview, it is likely that there's something amiss with the CV somewhere. So check your spelling and grammar for mistakes, and then don't lie or give misleading information, because people do ask you for them, especially if you're talking about your achievements. If there's anything you're really unsure of, don't include it, especially if you feel uncomfortable maybe saying something but you didn't really do it that way, or you didn't really do something. Don't feel the need you need to include it. That's where it's a marketing tool. You don't want false advertising basically about yourself. Be careful not to overload it with too much formatting or with too much design, because it makes it very hard to read and find that information you need. When I say here about trying to avoid using too many bullets, it's often to do with everything in bullet points. I've had CVs come in where the profile is bulleted, the work experience was all bulleted, so it's very hard to find the information that they need. So this is where they come in strategically. And do not, for the life of you, copy and paste job descriptions directly into your CV. When I say related to the CV, I do mean read it and then go, I've done that, I've done a project similar to that. I'm going to put the word project into my CV, or that particular change management project, we'll say, into that, not the whole thing, because employers will know. And yeah, so I've already kind of said a lot of things there about that. So before I finish, I just want to go through an example that was given to me. Well, not given to me, an example of a client that was referred to me by Employmum. I think it was a few years ago now, but this is one CV that I do remember very well, because I really enjoyed, first off, I really enjoyed working with it. And second off, it really did challenge how we laid it out and how we worked together to build the information that she needed. So a bit of background and context on this. This woman, she was out of work for 20 years because she took the time to raise a family. So she was a full-time mother. And when she came to me, when she was referred to me by Employmum, she was looking to go into procurement and buying, and the career basically that she was in before she was raising a family. So the challenge was here, how do we represent the information on the page in a way that is still reflecting her experiences and still reflecting everything that she did learn before she took the time out, but also shows how she kept herself active. So this is actually what we came up with. And as you can see here, there's the details there that you can fill out at the top. There's the statement and there's the skills. And again, this is one design that I felt, after talking to the client, it would work best for her. That doesn't mean that that doesn't mean, again, if she decided to change this, that is wrong. It's all about the content too as well at the end of the day. So we have here relevant experience, as I mentioned. There's the relevant experience brought up from way back, and it explains clearly that she's done the job before and that she's able to, here's all the skills she's learned, and that she's very able to do the job. But that wasn't it. We also looked at what she currently did as when she was working at home, because she was working at home. When you're a full-time mother, you're working at home. But she was involved with all of these associations and councils and societies and everything else, which meant that she kept herself learning other skills that perhaps could help with her new position. And this again is just a snippet. I think in here as well we included the fact that she worked in sales, which could help when you are procuring something, especially with negotiation or with confidence in products and things like that. So there's a lot of inferred skills that you can draw out from just one position. And there's then how her education and training was put together again as well. This is all from just chatting with the woman. But at the end of the day, she sent that in and she got the interview and she actually was successful in getting the job. So it was very important on how that was laid out for her to be able to be seen as somebody very confident in her role, even though she wasn't in experience or in active working for 20 years. So that is my presentation. Thank you very much for listening and for watching. I hope it has been of benefit to all of you. And yes, if you have any questions, I would be glad to try and answer them for you.
Great.
Yeah, so, so that was that.
Great. Thanks a million, Lorraine. That was super. Thanks a million. Even like I'm reviewing CVs on a weekly basis, and I'm still, every day is a school day when it comes to CVs. You'll always learn something when you listen to other people, and I think it's great. Just different tips. Actually, Times New Roman, I had forgotten about that advice you mentioned before. So I suppose when I'm focused on getting the good content in for some candidates, like I forgot about that, and I like that idea of the two different formats. Playing around and testing. That's a good idea. Okay, yes, there are lots of questions, so I think I might jump straight in there.
Sure.
I think many of the questions are around managing the gap of the CV. There's a few different people who have given, look, I've been raising I have 15 plus years pre-kids, then I took 8 to 10 to longer, 15 years out. How do I acknowledge it? Do I acknowledge it? Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, gaps of CVs. So that's, for example, with that example I gave, you can technically say that she was out of work for 20 years as a whole gap in her CV. Especially if it was to raise a family or something like that, or if it was illness or to look after a family member. That is perfectly fine to say career break, and then maybe say personal, whatever the reason is. But in that time as well, if it was, let's say, to take out time to care for a family member, you could put that in as experience, because it is experience. It's something new you have to learn. You have to adapt to a situation. You have to, look after your whoever it is. It might be a family member, it might be it doesn't matter who it is exactly. But there's always skills there that you're learning. You're learning to adapt to different situations, and how you manipulate that, I suppose, on your CV. But also, I'm sure if you were involved voluntary in that time, because I'm sure maybe you may or may not have taken time out voluntary as well, that's where that can also help to bridge those gaps too. Again, I had another example where voluntary experience actually came above professional experience because it was more related to where they wanted to go. So it really depends on the direction of the person as well. But yeah, if it's 1 to 2 years, it can be implied that you've gone out traveling, or you've taken time out, or if you have a sabbatical, you can put that into sabbatical for the 2 years, and then you went back in. It's just if you're worried about that, just whatever it is that you want to say about it, put it on and be honest about it, because most of the time employers won't pry into it any further than what you've really put in. Yes,
that's great. And just to add to that, yeah, we've even done seminars on this, owning the gap, owning it, acknowledging it, never apologize for it.
No.
Listen, whoever's interviewing you or reviewing those CVs, there's a good chance they're a parent or an uncle or an aunt or whatever it is. So never apologize it, own it. I was lucky to be in a position to take a break to do X and Y, and now I'm ready to get back in, and I'm ready to give it socks. So that's, so we're all about that.
Give it
Great.
socks.
Okay, give it socks. So professional. Okay, this is another one, and you've kind of alluded, and actually just the CV that Lorraine went through there at the end of her presentation, we were delighted that was one of our candidates, and it's a really good success story of ours, because she came to Karen actually a few years ago, saw the job, and she kind of saw the job advertised late in the process. So we already had 3 CVs in, but I think we're all about rooting for the underdog at Employflex. So Lorraine was put under pressure, and we said to Lorraine, if you could have her CV, magic that CV up by noon tomorrow, and we got the CV, we got her in an interview, and it was just a really good news story. So that was a big thanks to Lorraine for turning that around for that girl, and really giving her that massive boost that she really deserved.
Yeah, I really enjoyed talking with her as well. It was very insightful, like to hear about people's backgrounds, and then I'm kind of going, you have a lot of experience here. I can help.
But unfortunately, then some clients, it's just the way you positioned her experience in voluntary work and all the work she did with the school council and everything, made it look like the paid job rather than the voluntary work. Okay, best approach for a CV for a person a little bit in the older category. I suppose.
So somebody who's probably has a lot of experience.
Well, what I'll tell you, Lorraine, is she's 50 plus, actively seeking with no luck. She obviously needs to make some form of a change, and she's just wondering both around her CV, but also an approach to writing a cover letter to actually get her in the door for that interview.
Yeah, that would, age does not matter. Again, if you're going to look at a CV and people go, oh God, they're presuming to be a certain age, then they're not really the company to work for, in my opinion. I think it should be about your experiences and how you can still bring something to the company. If you are not getting any responses, it could be maybe you're not hitting on the actual keywords that they're looking for in the job itself, or especially in the cover letter. Cover letters and the profile have to be tailored, but it's not really, it's a mixture of believe my skills are suitable for this role, but it's more about, okay, if they're asking for project management, what projects did you manage? How big were they? Budgets, time constraints, things like that. So you really need to kind of emphasize it and bring it out a bit more. Without seeing the CV, but I can't really give more, but that's kind of it. You might need to elaborate more on certain points. So instead of saying content, if it's marketing, instead of saying marketing, it could be social media marketing, digital campaigns, email campaigns, and what you did and how you gathered that information and everything else. So it's maybe more about looking at what the results of your achievements are and how you can still bring value to companies, no matter what age you are. No matter what age you are.
Yeah, no, I think it's kind of like, I feel like some of these, there's a few of these questions along that same vein, and it's like they're nearly apologizing. You have so much to give. You have so much to give, qualifying and quantifying your experience. And, you know.
I would also say, just on that point, sorry, Helen,
no bother.
The focus there, especially if you're a certain age, would be on the experience rather than if your education. You know, like a lot of things go, I haven't done education since 1997, we'll say. That doesn't matter, because you've built on it, you grew yourself, and it should be on your experiences. And that's where, if you focus on that rather than you don't have a cert in this, you know, that's where you're gonna be confident in yourself. You know, that's what I would normally say to people. Your experience speaks more volumes than what you've learned academically or something like that. Sorry.
Okay, that's great. No, that's great. There's a great question here, and it's kind of in two different ways. Somebody that has been, Orla, I've been a home worker, a remote worker now for about 10 years. I'm back looking for work now and wondering, is remote working a skill that can be added to a CV?
Yes, in a roundabout way. You can put it in your cover letter, for example, that maybe you're looking for remote working, remote opportunities. But when you are looking at remote working, there's a lot of this technical, as you can see, we're doing it right now. We're remote working right now. It's about understanding how to engage with teams in different areas. It's about maybe being able to learn technologies on the spot without having somebody there to teach you. It's about managing your time very well, project managing and things like that. So I wouldn't necessarily put remote working as a skill in the section. I would more or less allude to it that you can do everything that entails remote working, because remote working is more than just remote working. You know, it's an umbrella term for everything else. So if you can bring in every other aspects to it, then that will help you going forward.
Thanks, Lorraine. And to add to that, actually, because I did have a client just last month looking to hire somebody remotely, and asked me, look, they were quite nervous, saying, okay, like if they preferred basically somebody that had a bit of a grasp of remote working already. So in the last few weeks, I have slotted it into some people's, even if somebody had a former part office and had a very small percentage of their work remote before, all of a sudden it's kind of become important right now, because if people are hiring, they want to know. And you know, for any of you who are applying for remote roles out there right now, make sure you start Googling remote questions for remote interviews in different ways, because there is a different suite of questions completely for that remote role, and they just want to make sure that you've thought it through and that you have, like, okay, current times is not normal, but when we do get back to whatever their new normal we keep referring to is, they want to see that you have, you know, thought it through, and you do understand what remote, it's not a 5 to 9 alarm clock and laptop open on your lap kind of a scenario.
And there's also the other things as well. If you have different teams in different countries, mention where your teams are based, mention, you know, because that is remote working, but different time zones, different cultures, bring those in too, because that is part and parcel of that as well.
Okay, great. Sorry, there's a load of questions here. I'm just going to fly through some. Okay, so I've downscaled my job in order to spend more time supporting my family, teenagers in exam years. As a result, most of my experience is not what I want to highlight at the start of my professional experience. What could I do? How do I lay it out?
Sorry, can you? So,
So
there, she's down.
She's downscaled her job. So she clearly was actually, okay, I know this person. She's qualified. She was and still is a very qualified accountant in background. Took maybe a less arduous role so that she could probably log off at 5 o'clock rather than the mad hours she was doing, just so that she could, you know, be at home more to support her. Both kids were at exam classes at that year. So as a result, her most relevant experience is not what she wants to highlight now at the start of her professional experience.
Oh, sorry. Yes, I get you now. Yes. So what you could do, you could keep, you know, because even though that's been downgraded a little bit, it doesn't mean that what you've learned in that experience won't help you go if you're going back to being a more senior professional. Because again, when you're working in a junior environment, the way you communicate with your team is different to if you're in a senior environment, because you know you're the boss, whereas you have peers maybe here, and you have to be more open-minded with your team. So if it is the case that you don't really want to emphasize too much on it, don't put a lot of weight in it. Just focus on the key things that maybe you learned from it, or that you would like, that might help you in going forward as a manager of the junior teams, we'll say. And then when you're going back into when you're describing your senior roles, then you can give more weight on that perhaps, and more relevant stuff like that. Because you know the account, if it's still relevant to where you're going, you know, you can keep it at the top, but just shorten it a bit more, you know what I mean? So again, it's a marketing tool, you know, whatever you'd like to add into that, you can.
Great. Thanks, Lorraine. Okay, there's a lot of questions here. I'm going to answer quickly. Ursula, I'm going to answer your question quickly. ATS software, that stands for Applicant Tracking Software System. So it's basically these larger companies that hire, they basically say, okay, I want the CVs to contain these 10 keywords and otherwise reject them automatically. So unfortunately, it really does take the human element out of reviewing CVs, but they are, especially for the big multinationals. So applicant tracking software. So I know Lorraine mentioned that at the start. Sorry, there's loads of questions there. Okay, photo. Ashling asked about a photo.
Yes.
Lorraine.
That would be a question, all right.
Yes, yeah.
Personal preference to the candidate themselves. In Ireland and the UK, they don't necessarily need a profile picture, but you can add it in. Again, if you are going to put it on the page, I would put the personal details in a table format with no borders. This is what I do. And I put the photo in one side and all the details on the other, and it's at the top, and you're not really losing much space. But if you're applying to Europe or somewhere else like that, yes, they sometimes require the photo. So it really depends where you're applying. That's all. And up to yourself as well if you want one.
Great. Yeah, no, I actually had to do research on that myself recently. I had a candidate that spent time in Ireland and Germany, and so yeah, we learned that for the German CV, keep it in, but for the Irish one, remove it. Not all gaps are voluntary, i.e. unemployment. How can you address that?
Some people, you know, it depends on how long the gap is. If it's a few months, you don't necessarily have to put it in. If it's a year, you may need to put it in, because you know, if you're, you know, if you're actively still looking, but it is a year, you may need to put it in. But within that year, you can look to see, right, have I been involved with other things in that time? So then, if you have been, that will actually bridge that gap. So then you wouldn't have to mention it in your career summary. If it's anything more, let's say, than a year, and you haven't done anything in the meantime to try and keep your skills up, I would just say the years and just say unemployed. Straight up, like honesty, you know, you're now looking for it, you know, honesty is the best policy, as they say.
I think so. I think so. And actually that answers another girl, Louise's question was around, she had a three-month role, it didn't work out. I feel like as well in current times that those short, especially if it's happened in the last few months, very understandable, very acceptable. And you know, even if it didn't work out for a different reason, you can totally throw COVID in as a reason.
You can, no, totally.
If you're not feeling comfortable, yeah.
Yeah, you can totally just say that's what happened, COVID, and you know, still maybe mention a bit about what you've done, but nothing you can do about it. Especially if it says 2020. I think everyone will know.
Yes, I think so. That year. Okay, so look, sorry, now there's so many questions here. So one other attendee, she has relevant, or she or he has relevant degrees, certs from over 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Would you ever leave them off the CV?
Degrees, no. Degrees, what you can do, you can get away with not putting the year in. Okay, I would tend not to put in the year if it's more than 10 years. But if it's within maybe 5 to 10 years, you can put in the year of the degree. But any third level, no. Certifications, that depends on what they are. If they are something that would go towards add value to you going for a certain career, leave them in. But again, if they don't need renewal, but they're done over 10 years ago, remove the year. You know, but again, it also depends on what you were certified in. If it's some software, we'll say, that has been updated since, and you haven't actually gone and done another cert on that, then maybe you can remove it off your CV because that's actually outdated now. You know, so it's just about what they are and whether they'll add value, and yeah. Okay. But definitely keep your degrees in. Definitely keep your degrees in, and postgrads and everything.
Okay. Okay, I'll just, there's so many other questions. I'm just going to put in one more question here. Okay, this one candidate is asking around any difference for a career change CV, going from childcare to office work. I suppose you mentioned the kind of having the two types. You could also have one that's more childcare heavy versus office work. Sorry, Lorraine, I'll let you take that.
No, go on. No, if you want. No, it's well, yeah, it's very much what you were saying, Helen. If you, let's say you did admin work or office environment positions before childcare, you can bring that forward above the childcare positions as relevant experience, just again to show that you have that experience. The skills will be more office related, office admin, reception manager, whichever it is related. But that doesn't mean that your social care experience doesn't add certain values either to the office type roles. It's again, you could build on the relationship building with parents and with children, how the soft approach perhaps with, you know, tending to them or whatever it is. So, you know, there's all these other skills that perhaps you can focus on when you're talking about that social care that will relate to your office. So if you are, let's say, have done a certs or degree or some sort of diploma in admin as well, office administration or something like that, you can, you know, again, bring up your education above your experiences. I think I mentioned that at the beginning. So it's really all about the layout and how to play around with it, as I said at the beginning, and have one or two. That's what I mean. I always say test it. You know, I might write one version of the same, two versions of the same CV, just different layout, and give it to the client, and then they can choose whichever, because they're essentially, that's kind of what I'm saying there.
No, that's great. No, listen, sorry to those who we didn't get to answer. A few of you asked about LinkedIn and a few others, or previous ones. So I might get Karen to add a quick line around our previous webinars on the email of the recording session that'll be going out to you soon. A massive thanks to Lorraine again for answering all those questions and for her great detailed presentation today. What else? Okay, so please, any of you that are not following us, please follow us across social media. And if you are happy with our webinars and have been attending a few of them, we really appreciate a shout out, a testimonial, a review, a thumbs up, and share the love. Because, you know, I suppose we've been doing these
all
obviously
beneficial.
Yeah, all very beneficial. No, word of mouth is always very good, and we're grateful for it. What else? Yeah, so the next webinar, today week, same time, same place, is going to be by Michelle Ryan, and Michelle is a certified nutritionist, and she is going to, she's from a company called Be Well Hive, and it will be around 4 steps to wellness for job seekers. I think 12 weeks into this, I have a terrible relationship with my fridge and can't seem to have a need to eat every 60 minutes. Major problem. Could do with stopping the chocolate. But no, Michelle will have some great tips and probably some recipes. I know I've seen her speak before and she's great. What else? Yeah, that's really it. Listen, a massive thanks to Lorraine again. Oh yeah, Lorraine alluded to, like, have a look at her website. She's got some brilliant blogs, and a lot of what she alluded to today is available in some format or some articles and blogs on her website, CV Tips and Tricks. And yeah, let's hopefully we'll see you all again this time next week. Okay, thanks very much.
Bye.
Bye.